Hello.
Hello, hello. How's it going, Matt?
Good. Now that we got all our technical issues fixed here, always
That's
fun.
always that's always the fun part. I felt like we did such a good job of getting the technical workflow figured out last time. Like I was pumping in music left, right, and center, and
If you have all kinds of time, it works. When you're like, it's the one hour slot in your day you can muster. That's when it fails for like 20 minutes. Right?
yeah,
Cool. So today, we were going to talk about Magic the Gathering.
yeah,
Nerd. I don't know what it is. That game to me is more synonymous with like kind of like nerd culture than like any
yeah.
other game.
It's like that in Warhammer, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Warhammer's the one where you paint your figures, right?
Yeah, and Warhammer is definitely a much a larger investment. You need to have space with a giant table. People who like paint the models, like if you look
Yeah,
at the really crazy people, not crazy, what's the word? Crazy passionate people. The
yeah.
amount of time and effort they put into painting each and every figure, wow! Like that in itself is a second job for me, for people like me. Um, but yeah, Magic is relatively low barrier to entry. I think maybe that's why it's
Yeah,
kind of more representative of just a general swath of nerd culture.
yeah,
More people.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, it seemed like that was one of the things where like the local game shop back in the day, where you could go rent video games. I feel like they used to have people just hanging around playing Magic the Gathering.
It's like a table out in the back kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Like I would be practice playing the demo of Mario 64, and other people would be like playing card games, and I'd be like, man, those guys are nerds.
It's funny. I feel like I might be completely wrong, and I'm sure there's tons of people who are like in love with both or whatever. But it almost
Mhm.
feels like the cultures there have diverged a little, just in the sense that like I don't know. I feel like when I was young, you'd go into a games store and they'd have almost like comic books on one wall, figures on
Mhm.
another, games on another,
Mhm.
and then some magic stuff in the back. Which is still kind of the case, but maybe I feel like nowadays it's like you go into a store and it's either a video game store with like games and whatever
Yeah.
TVs everywhere, or it's a tabletop store, and that's kind of their own thing. It's almost like that crowd is a little bit too. I don't know. Maybe they're a little smug towards the video game folks sometimes.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't
Maybe it's
know.
mutual.
I feel like it's a paper versus a electricity culture or something. Like I do feel like the little statues, not just like the tiny ones that you paint for games, but like the full blown like $400 statues of like Cloud fighting against Sephiroth. Like I feel like the comic book stores tends to have like the collectibles and the physical media a lot, and then
Yeah.
I don't even know. I mean, I guess game electronics boutique, which is now officially GameStop in Canada. Uh, I guess they're like one of the only video game stores I can even think of that still exists.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess to be fair, the last time I bought a Magic the Gathering deck, it was actually from there.
Oh wow, they actually sell
They,
them.
yeah, they sell lots of I don't know those uh, Popco. What's it?
Funko.
Funko Pop statues. They've got like a
Oh,
wall of that, and then
yeah,
they've got like
those aren't for me. I never understood the appeal of like I don't know matching the original, unique, interesting character design to that form and selling them in like little I don't know
it was weird.
super
I
deformed
mean,
styles.
it seemed interesting when I first heard of it because it was like this thing where they were selling just the blank template models, and people were buying those and then customizing them into their own things.
Yeah, that's a
And
little different.
it
Yeah,
was like this neat uh, crafting culture where people were like heating up knives and slicing the vinyl and modifying the and painting them and stuff, and that it somehow went from like this artsy thing to just like uh collectible landfill.
yep. I don't even remember that like era. I didn't even know that that existed. To me, it's just always been like nothing but pre characterized figures, not customizable stuff.
I think they were called monies. I actually bought a couple of them at one point, and I started to use one, and I didn't really basically do anything with it. Yeah, money, mini
like
money,
dollar money or like MUNE.
Munny by Kid Robot.
Huh. Mune? Money? Okay, sure.
I don't know. I remember getting a couple of those, and I didn't really do anything with them. I think I got it like really close to just before moving.
Hmm.
So I moved, and then like 2 years later, I still did nothing with the one that I'd opened, and then my wife opened up the second one and made me a Samus Aran in the Varia suit.
Nice. She
Uh,
ended up doing it for you.
yeah, so now I've got it somewhere. I don't see it, so I don't know what I did with it. My desk has become a clutter of candy wrappers and stuff, so it's probably buried.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I've always really liked actually I'm not so much into collecting figures and stuff. I feel like
Hmm.
it's like I mean, you know me, I collect all these old games. And I've kind of cooled on that and now I have them.
Hmm.
So I'm glad I haven't also been collecting figures and stuff this whole time because I just have boxes of them that I uh, feel guilty about getting rid of, but
Right,
don't have set up or anything. But
right.
I don't know, I kind of get it. Like when I've walked into some super nerds room and it's like covered wall to wall in Transformers or whatever, it's like, hey, cool, right? I don't want to maintain this. I don't want to
Hmm.
have this. Or you walk in the game room and they have an awesome statue or something. There's this guy. I was just watching a YouTube video and this guy is like a huge Transformers nerd, and he's always presenting the Transformers finds he has. I don't like watch this regularly, but I don't know. I happened upon it, and I looked at his channel, and he had also just bought this brand new giant Transformer statue that was $500 and came in parts, and you had to put it together, and it's like almost as tall as a person. And I don't know if you
Hmm.
give the smallest shit about Transformers, but it's the Constructicons, Devastator, like the
Right,
big.
right.
They all combined to make one giant one. It looked cool, but like I guess that goes back to us moving all the time. Like I'd have to lug this thing around if I had it, and where would you put it in your house? Like I don't know, not my culture necessarily. I do like board games. I do like board games, card games, that kind of thing. Um, I know you're not the biggest fan. I don't want to speak for you, but
I mean, I think part of it also just comes down to the people who you're friends with, right? Like,
probably fair.
I wouldn't be against playing games like
Hmm.
that, but I feel like my family wasn't really that much into it. We played Monopoly growing up, and I hated it.
Sure.
Uh, and then to get away from Monopoly, I turned to single player video games.
Escapism from Monopoly. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess for our most devoted fans that have listened to all of these podcasts,
Yep.
I think there's a
So you
recurring
and
theme.
I.
And my wife half listened to a couple of them.
Okay.
Yeah, my there's this recurrent theme of me being like uber focused on kind of the game part,
Yeah.
and I guess like you're a bit more comprehensive and care a lot more about uh,
Everything.
the immersiveness, yeah, everything, the flavor. I like to almost not dismissively, but
Yeah, yeah,
I guess
yeah, yeah.
separately assess it as right. But I guess what appeals to me about board games and card games and stuff is
Mhm,
that since they don't necessarily have the same um, uh, powers that a video game would have to
mhm,
drive the immersion piece, the focus tends to be very much on making it a fun experience by making it a fun game, right? And so
mhm,
like they have to work as a great um, like the game mechanics, if you will, have to work really well to make the game fun.
mhm,
You can't have it just be fun because the music is great or it looks so pretty or like it's like a walking simulator and you can just lose yourself like on a board game where you're rolling dice. Like you just you don't necessarily. I mean, maybe some people have pulled some crazy stuff off, but
mhm,
generally that option isn't there so much, and so you make uh, uh, you have to take it from the approach of like the game is good because it's a series of very interesting choices.
mhm.
Let's make that as interesting as we can, right? And so it's funny you call it Monopoly because I see like
Star Wars Monopoly and Spider-Man Monopoly. And
I would say there's games that are successful at this and there's games that are not. But the thing is that the more it's like anything, right? Like the more complexity you bring in, maybe for like the devoted players, that makes every choice very interesting and it makes the game very deep. But it throws up this barrier of entry, right? And so like
mhm,
something like Monopoly, you could play it with your 7 year old. Big deal. And it's kind of like it's like beer pong or something. Like it's so dumb. You just turn your mind off and have a half hour of arguably fun times and then move on, right? But like I think anyone who's really excited about board games and this kind of game would step beyond that, and they'd be playing, many of these whatever German games, or
Hmm.
what's that one that's super popular? I don't even play enough board games, despite the way I'm talking about them. The Pandemic one.
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, there's one that's really popular. It's like the game actually changes as you play it. Like events happen, and
Right.
now like I forget, like a country gets wiped out, and so you put a sticker on the board because like
Hmm.
some disease has raged there, and it's like you never know what the next event is gonna
Right.
be. But a playthrough is actually destructive. So
Hmm.
once you've played through it with your friends over however many hours, it's now done. The campaign is done. The board has been changed, altered permanently. You've ripped up cards or whatever. It's
Hmm.
an interesting concept. But yeah, I think like for me, setting out to build a successful physical game
Hmm.
is a very different thing than building a successful video game. And I wouldn't make a weird argument that one is harder or easier or whatever. It's very much apples to oranges. But like, I guess just the things you need to get right when making a physical game, to me, skew more to that set of things that really appeal to me, right? Like the game mechanics and being forced into making really interesting
Hmm.
choices constantly. If you lack that in a board game, you'll get bored, right?
Hmm.
Whereas like how many people just crunch through dungeons in Final Fantasy whatever, and it's not like none of these
Yeah.
choices are that interesting, right? Oh, another battle. Oh, it's another goblin. Click, 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 click. I just want to see the next cutscene and get my dopamine hit when my character's level goes up. But like the actual battle isn't that interesting, right?
Hmm.
I don't know. I guess to me, people who are very highly successful at developing board games, it's an interesting, I guess, skill set you need, if that makes sense. Like if you look at the people, like a lot of these board game designers, it's interesting because a lot of them are actually like mathematicians and stuff.
Hmm.
Of course, they hire people to do the art and they work on getting all of those pieces right as well. But you don't really necessarily see that so much in like game design, I guess, or like video game design, right? It's not like uh, I don't know.
Oh, I mean, there's totally data analysis and stuff that's going on in games. Like,
Oh, in every possible product
yeah,
analysis.
like there's definitely the group of math people behind like a Candy Crush thing that are just like, how can we m- make this an
But that's
addictive
yeah,
experience,
yeah.
right?
That's like data science
Hmm.
crunching at big corp X kind of stuff. I mean, I'm imagining like an indie
Yeah.
startup that's launching some sort of board game versus an indie startup launching like video games.
Right.
I don't know. Just the character of the groups is different enough that it's interesting, and that's not to say that one is better or worse, or because one is a little more like this, it's uh, I don't know, more legit or something. It's just kind of just feel
Hmm.
like the board game crew skews a little more mathy, techy, um, in some interesting ways, I guess. Maybe that's not the case. I don't know. Maybe all the video game designers are actually math people. I never really got that impression as much. Um,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell, right? Like, there's uh oh man, I hate when I want to reference something. Doesn't Riot have like a big successful card game?
what is it? Something Stone. Come on,
Yeah,
Bloodstone, Cold Stone,
Hearthstone.
Hearthstone. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like there's some games like that. Now I got to double check to see if that is right.
It is
Uh,
Hearthstone, and I imagine the same type of people with the same type of
yeah,
mindset as like Magic are working on Hearthstone.
yeah, it's
Absolutely.
a digital collectible card game. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a way, video games are kind of a superset of board games, really, if you think about it, because you could digitize board games, and then there's a whole bunch of other moving pieces, whereas you
Mhm.
can't necessarily adopt a video game so well into a board game, though people have tried, interestingly.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's a
Well,
moot point. I just, sorry, go on. Go ahead.
it's definitely a different set of mechanics and complexity that can be built using one method. I don't know. Like, that was one problem. Is I got a game a few years ago. Uh, Again, I'm bad with names. I never actually ended up playing it. I think it's called like Dungeon Master or Dungeon Boss or something. Boss Dungeon, maybe Dungeon card. Oh, look at that! I'm looking it up. The dungeon building card game. Yeah, so there's a game called Boss Monster, the dungeon building card game, and I bought that a couple years ago because we had some friends here in Montreal I felt like, yeah, let's have some board game nights or something, and I got it, and it's a card game. I've never once played it. It's a standalone card game with 155 games and cards, and I guess the idea is like you're supposed to like someone's supposed to build a video game inspired dungeon, like a Dragon Quest style dungeon or something, or I guess wizardry or something.
Hmm.
And you build this thing up and you plant traps and come up with monsters and stuff, and then your players are supposed to try to get through the dungeon and survive. And it's just like it took like the I never made it through reading the rules. Like it's there was just so much time invested before you can actually play the game that we never ended up playing it.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's part of what is frustrating for me, even with like Magic the Gathering and stuff. Like there was so the way I got into Magic Gathering is I did have a friend here in Montreal, and we kind of got into it together.
Oh wow, that's
And
recent then.
yeah, that's pretty recent. Like I had a couple decks when I was a kid, and never really got into it. Like I played a game with someone in college, and it's weird because it's like if you're get newly into Magic and you try playing with someone who knows what they're doing, it's like you've got one of those pre-built starter decks and nothing else padding it out, and then they've got something that they've been like crafting
Curated.
for 1,000 hours and $1,000 probably. And it's just like you put the two decks together and they've got like some weird strategy that's going to stomp you out, that you've got no ability to counter because you barely even know how your deck works, right?
Yeah.
So it's there's like a huge skill wall with it. Like I think for the most part, like a game like Trouble or that's something that you can play with your kid, and anyone at all ages is going to have a pretty equal chance of winning, and you just shoot the shit while you're playing and have fun. Whereas something that's like based on strategy, it can be a rough skill wall to try to get into. Um, so I never really got into it that much, and then for whatever reason, after moving here to Montreal, I went into like I think it's Dollarama is the local dollar store, and they were selling like 100 mixed cards for like $1.
Nice.
So I just bought like I don't know 2,000 cards or something,
Jeez.
and then I just like took these like this like shoebox, and I don't know, it's like two shoe boxes worth of cards, and I just started picking them out and sorting them and trying to come up with decks. And so I've got, let me see here, uh, 17 decks.
Like you curated 17 decks, or you just
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
sorted them?
No, I curated 17 decks. So I've got like a blue, a black green, a black red, a blue green, blue green, green, green red, multicolored, red, white black, white blue plus others, white green and white red. And so it's
Wow.
just like and so that was like I spent so much time doing that completely by myself, and I think that was like a oddly obsessive and interesting and stuff to just like have these. I mean, each deck is 60 cards, right? So
Hmm.
uh what's the math? 60 times 17 is 1,020 cards. Like trying to kind of have all of that in your head and figure out like how can I build these things in a way that's balanced so that no one deck is particularly stronger than the others, and yet they all have like strategies and stuff to them that I don't know. It was like this web of interestingness, and I almost that was like 3 years ago, so I don't think I could tell you anything about any of those decks at this
Yeah.
point.
I mean, that's a less usual approach, I'll say.
Yeah, but it was fun. Like I built all these decks, and then what I did was I would go over to my buddy's place once a week, and we would just each grab a random deck, and we would playthrough, and we were trying to figure out like which ones are the best decks and whatnot. We had like a little round robin, uh, and that was fun for me. There was like two decks that were so sorry. 15 of those I curated myself, and two of them were starter decks that I bought at the EB Games here in Montreal, and those two decks just fucking stomped all of the other decks.
I see.
Uh,
I
uh,
mean, it's kind of the way the game goes too. If you can build a killer combo,
yeah,
yeah, it's how it flies.
but it's interesting because I did have a lot of fun just like crafting those out
Yeah.
of like completely random things, and I guess that was like mostly built off of like original rules. So like I I haven't kept up with any of what the modern rules are with like
Mhm.
commander decks and stuff goes.
I actually also haven't, to be honest.
Uh,
Um,
so it's I don't know. It's weird because when you do get invested in a collectible card game like this, they're they obviously want to change stuff up and force everyone to have to buy a new deck and stuff. And to me, it's like that idea of like I've got these 17 decks and none of them are compatible with the new format. Why would I play the new format?
I mean, there's you're not the only one, right? I
Yeah.
think there's people that or like they like a certain set. I mean, I have a very rudimentary understanding, if I'm entirely honest. But basically, it works in blocks, I guess, and so they come out with a new block. I believe, is it once a year or once every however often? I think it's once a year. There's a new
Hmm.
block that starts, and then they release the main block and then three expansions, or maybe it's two. I don't remember. But you can always use any of basically the same block. And so when an expansion comes out, it's kind of an expansion to your block. But when they move on to a new block, you can no longer use those cards anymore.
Hmm.
But I think that I don't think it's like, okay, we're now in the new block, throw everything away. I think it's actually like a sliding window. Like you can always use anything out of the last three releases or something. And part of that, of course, is exactly as you've said. It's like a business motivation to just keep things pushing. But then that's also how they. It's almost like releasing hot fixes to like a shipped game. They like
Hmm.
if there's a balance issue, then they push out the old cards slowly. And of course they ban cards in real time and
Yeah.
stuff, but you can kind of like adjust the game over time. But cards stay around long enough that it's not just like pop in pop out. Like a card could be like a few sets old, but it's still legal for another few months. um, the way I play that I find the most interesting. I mean, you have a few. There's of course a few different ways to play. The traditional one being like just you basically curate your deck to be whatever you want it to be, and so people would
Hmm.
like buy whatever cards specifically off eBay, or they
Yeah.
just pour however much money, and it becomes this kind of very rough, like pay to play situation. That's not really. I don't like that, but
I'm not a
most
fan
people
of it.
don't. Yeah, most people. I don't think anyone is really right. It can be kind of fun, just crafting your power deck and destroying people because
Hmm.
you made the deck yourself. You looked at all the cards that were out there and it worked and it's fun. But I mean, it does suck that you have to pay all this money to get the rare cards, and ultimately you're probably beating people who just didn't have the money to pay to keep up. And it's like, why am I paying like $100 for this when I could have not done that? Anyway, the format I do
Yeah.
like, yeah, right. The format I do like is the I don't even know the names, but the tournament format, basically, like you buy one big box of all the different cards and you
Hmm.
hand everyone who's involved in the tournament like six packs, and that's your
Yeah.
deck. Go. And then every like you do the rounds, and every round you get a new pack. And so like you would craft your deck out of what you have. Everyone else is in the same boat. They have the same amount of cards as you. Some people would get
Yes and no.
luckier, of course. Yes and no, you said.
Well, I mean, you were throwing in just as I was saying that, like, uh, um, some people are luckier than others. Like that's the thing that I don't like about the format is just that like it's a weird game that card games are kind of supposed to be chance, but then this is also supposed to be strategy, and then it's just like some people are luckier with what their options are for the strategy.
Yeah, I like that actually. It's kind of like I don't know. I used to play. Whoa, whoops! I used to play like NHL '94 like tournaments with people,
Mhm.
which is funny. But
Is
um,
that's the one where you just do the little wrap around the net and
the
can score
wraparound
every
isn't as
time?
good as it's really easy to get a breakaway. You just pass it to your fastest player, and then you just do the exact perfect like left then right deke, and it goes in every time.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. But it's luck what team you get, right? And there's
Yeah.
kind of an understanding. If you got the champion team that year, you're going to be super strong. If you get the shit team, you're going to be weak. And you can change things up. Of course, some people
Yeah.
don't do it that way. They like rank people, and then the stronger your rank, the weaker the team you get. But like it was always kind of fun to be basically handed a team and then just try and do as good as you could.
Mhm.
I think you're right about just generally, of course, it's a card game. Like you shuffle a deck and draw cards. There's an inherent element of chance in
Mhm.
the vast majority of these games, and I guess Magic, this format, especially, is just by the means of like the fact that it's chance. It's entirely random what cards you actually have available to you. Maybe the chance element is higher, or it's very unbalanced. I would say the tournament, of course, gets more and more fair actually
Mhm.
generally as you play it, because if every round everyone's getting another pack and another pack, I mean,
Yeah.
the people who have no good cards will finally get their good cards. The people who have good cards will get some duds. It's just, the more
Yeah.
you continue to dole out packs, the more it kind of slowly evens itself out.
Yeah.
But and like, if you don't like that, you don't like that. I totally see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess I find that interesting. Basically,
Yeah.
working with what you have, because each game is chance too, right? I've had
Yeah.
weak decks, and I've gone up against people who have won every game, and they're very proud of themselves. And like the game we play together against each other, I win because they just get really poor draws. And so
Mhm.
it's like the chance doesn't just creep in at the deck building stage; it creeps
Yeah.
in the actual game itself, right? Um, and it's kind of a big part of the game, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. That's another. I could probably talk all day about that as well. Like say, I don't know, chess versus
Yeah.
basically any card game, right?
Go.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Go is over on the no chance side too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, I don't know, uh, all kinds of stuff, I guess. But yeah, like basically any card game.
Yeah.
Mahjong is another fascinating game because there's a lot of deep, I guess, rules, and so deep strategies. Like the strategy tree is huge, but
Yeah.
it's completely luck what you're going to draw. The best you can
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
is very quickly, because you're under time pressure, mathematically calculate what the best like path to take is to get a winning hand,
Yeah.
or take a risk and take a less likely but higher scoring hand and aim for that, and just go in real time, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, I want to pretend that I know what you're talking about because the only mahjong that I've played is just like the solitary version that you can play on your phone.
Yeah, the ones.
So when it comes to like uh, caring about how long you take or anything, it's, or a hand, like I've got no concept of having a hand in it. I thought it was just like you match stuff and remove it from the pile.
No, I mean, to give you the very, very high level, it's basically just like poker, except poker, you have what, like five cards or whatever, and you have to like build a hand. You have to like, you get to throw cards away once, and then you pick up more cards, and you can try and build the best hand you can with that. I mean, there's a bunch of
Hmm.
different poker rules, of course, and sometimes there's like the shared cards on the board and whatever. But if you think of it similarly, you have a very big hand. It's like 14 tiles, I think, and you
Hmm.
have to build a hand, but you can continually throw down tiles, not cards, but you continually throw down tiles and pick new tiles, and everyone keeps rotating and doing that until someone gets a hand. So
Hmm.
imagine poker if everyone just kept throwing down a card and picking up a new one until someone had a hand, and they say, "I have a hand, I win." But it's 14 tiles anyway. But the way a hand is made is very is deep,
Yeah.
so it's kind of um, it's interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to maybe figure out the actual version sometime because yeah, just searching for it, like Wikipedia says it's a 3 to 4 player game, but I've only ever played the single player version.
It's not even that. That's just using the. That's like,
This,
yeah,
yeah, that's
it's the tile set. It's not the game, right? So
yeah.
it's yeah. Anyway, I've also played that game, and my mom was crazy about it for a while. So that for me was mahjong for a very long time
Yeah.
as well. Excuse me. But
My,
yeah,
my mom was addicted to Minesweeper.
Minesweeper. Yeah. Yeah. I guess I don't know. I'm like a stickler for like rule sets that lead to interesting choices. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, chance or no chance is kind of what a lot of these games are. That's what Magic is. Again, that's like we kind of chuckle at Monopoly, but that's why Monopoly is not as interesting. The rule set doesn't really provide you with that much opportunity to make that many interesting choices. Like, sure,
Yeah.
maybe negotiating with your friends for like a property trade or something can be fun. It's everyone's
Hmm.
having a drink and laughing it off, but really, it's not that deep, right? It's just like kind of a
Yeah.
chummy game. I would argue that like well, both Magic, Mahjong, whatever. They're a lot
Hmm.
more. There's a lot more of that, and I really like that. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean that was totally the thing that I found interesting when I did finally get into Magic was just
Mm.
that idea of the theory crafting.
Yeah.
Like I enjoyed the deck building
Yeah. I like
component of
that.
it more than enjoyed the actual playing of it because I don't know. It's
I
like
kind of agree.
it's like I know that there are interesting combinations to be had, and I'm kind of less interested in the fact that whether or not they'll happen is
Yeah.
by chance.
Totally, totally hear you. I mean, I've had some like literally like sweat beating down your face, down to the wire Magic games that make that element very fun for me, I guess.
Yeah.
But definitely I like that it's multi-phase because you have the deck building
Hmm.
portion and then you have the actual play portion. What I like about the tournament format is that you go back and forth constantly. You
Yeah.
build your deck, you play people,
Yeah.
your weaknesses are exposed. So like you play somebody and they do some crazy combo on you and you realize you have no defense for it.
Hmm.
So the next round you get a new pack. So hey, new cards. I'm obviously going to switch these out. But then I remember what happened to me last time. I need a defense for that. Oh, whatever, whatever. And you
Hmm.
recraft your deck. And then you play again, and you recraft your deck, and then you play again. And so by the end, it's like everyone kind of has a strongish deck,
Yeah.
and they're all kind of different because we didn't all just go check the internet for the best possible
Yeah.
deck and go buy those cards. It's just like
Yeah.
what you have is what you have. Um, and I don't know, it just leads to some really interesting outcomes, I'd say. And both the phases go back and forth, which is a lot of fun, I think.
What's interesting is like where you were talking that very early on in this podcast how I tend to be more into the flavor than you. It's like when it comes to Magic that I mean I don't know how much you're into it or not, but I found that I didn't care about the artwork and stuff that's on it. Like there's people that are like follow the illustrators for Magic the Gathering, like that's their
Yeah.
thing. They want to buy the merch and stuff and have the T-shirts and the play mats and everything. For me, it's like I never read like any of the little stories about what the cards are.
Yep.
It's like I was just looking purely at like the numbers of like what does this do and what's the effect it has. And
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we could play Smash Brothers and strip away all the sprites and just have
yeah, yeah, yeah,
squares, right? So, and it would be the same game. Would it be as fun? I don't know. Some people maybe some people hate how it looks and they'd be like, great, it's squares. I don't have to look at those awful Nintendo characters. Maybe some
yeah.
people would be like, I hate this now.
Fucking
I think
Pac-Man.
it's interesting you bring that up. I was just going to say, I guess like Magic, I would argue is actually successful as like kind of like providing interesting flavor
Yeah,
just because like they hire professional artists, they have enough fans. Like it's not just like any professional artist will do, just go draw his
yeah,
cards. It's like they make sure that they thematically get the right people or whoever they think are the right people.
yeah,
And like it's funny that like it's become like if you follow artists online, it's like a lot
hmm,
of them do this and that and magic cards. It's almost like it's like one
yeah,
of the various avenues people actually, when they choose our careers, seek to kind of maybe it's like a
yeah,
holy grail. I've worked at Blizzard. Is
yeah,
that still a holy grail? I don't know. For some people it is. I've done magic cards. Yeah, For me personally, I don't know. I'm not as much a fan of like this like kind of the modern style that the vast majority of the cards have, which is just like this very realistic, but also very
hmm,
it kind of all looks the same to me. It's like this very realistic, but like just typical kind of digital or looking kind of digitalish fantasy art. Whereas like some of
yeah,
the older cards, I just love the like they weren't nearly as realistic, and a lot of people hate them because they look bad. But they just to me they're more like pen art, and they look really cool. Like they're really stylized and fun. Like when I first got into the game as a kid, and it was Ice Age. Like it's funny now to look back at the Ice Age cards because honestly, like half of them are, besides being just broken mechanically, like they just honestly kind of look terrible. But like the ones that don't look terrible, they have this really cool like pen art style or like
yeah,
just various different. Like some of them aren't really serious, but they're serious enough, and then they look cool. Like now everything is muscle man with the moon shining on him in whatever angle, and it's ultra realistic, and that's cool. But it's
yeah,
nothing but that, and it's just not quite for me. I do love the really old styles from a lot of like really old Magic card art, though.
yeah. I'm looking at some of that right now. Well,
Yeah.
what's interesting is I've seen. So I guess two things flooding my brain simultaneously. Um, I ended up getting my kid the Pokemon game at Christmas time because he's really in love with Pokemon. So we got the
Yeah.
an Eevee and a Pikachu deck and spent a few days during the holidays playing that. We should probably dig that back out again at some point. Um, but what's interesting is like the how much the kids are into the Pokemons.
Yeah.
Like I remember there were when my kid was 1, we went to a playground and he found one on the ground, and it's
What,
like
like a stuffed animal or something?
no, like one of the Pokemon cards. Like
Oh, okay, yeah.
like some people had brought their cards out to a playground and in like
Left one.
a binder and had accidentally dropped one and it fell down, and my kid picked that up and he's like 1 and he's looking at it, and some kid came over and saw him with it and it just is like talking to him about Pokemon and I have to like after a couple minutes I had to just be like, you know, he's 1, he doesn't understand you.
Awesome. Uh, I was reading some, or someone had sent me some research on like, I guess like what appeals to very small children, like literally 1, 2, and it's a lot of like circles and round shapes and
Mhm.
stuff. And apparently, when they made Pokemon, they basically took all that research and said, well, let's make a huge set of characters out of this,
Yeah.
and it's been highly successful. So I haven't like gone and like I don't have data or anything. It just it from it seems like it's legit. So there's something about the design of Pokemon that seems universally appealing to very small people. I guess
Yeah.
once you're in too, right?
Yeah.
Like we all know who Eevee is, we all know
Yeah.
who Squirtle is, etc. So
Yeah. Speaking of which, I just with my kid on the weekend, we finally beat Pokemon Let's Go Eevee.
finally, like how many hours is it?
I was like 40 something hours for that, but you have
Okay,
to keep in mind that we also spent 40 some hours playing the exact same game last year, which was Pokemon Let's Go uh,
not
Pikachu.
Eevee.
So, but he loved Eevee so much that he was begging for it for like 8 months or something, and then I finally broke down and got that and
Caved.
played it with him.
That's funny. Is it like the same game, like
Yeah,
exactly?
yeah. I mean, you've got Eevee as your starter instead of Pikachu, and so you've got they're both a unique Pikachu and a unique Eevee that have moves that none of the other ones in the game has. So,
I
but
see.
effectively, the whole rest of the game is the same.
Cool, cool. Yeah, I haven't been playing too much lately.
Oh, well,
Sad on me.
that's the end of the conversation, I guess.
Click done. We are coming up on time.
Yep.
Is there a conclusion to be had here? I don't know.
I don't know. I so just to admit how pathetic I was with that Magic game. There's a program you can get called Forge that lets you build your decks digitally and then like play against an AI.
Hmm.
And so all of those decks that I built, I rebuilt digitally and I played against the AI a total of 1,162 times.
Like you play it, or can you just click go and it plays
No,
automatically AI versus?
I personally played that many games against the AI.
Wow, really? Wow. When was this? What were you doing at the time?
This
That's a
was
significant time commitment.
I think 2017, 2018.
Wow. Yeah. And what's your record?
I mean, I did 5 games with each deck to see how many times the deck would win or lose against the other decks.
Hmm.
So my record was with the black and green deck that I said that was overpowered. That won 72 times and lost 12 times.
Ooh. Bragging points. I still remember some of my top decks I'd made. There was one with a Bitter Blossom. It's kind of a famous card. You could basically get in a scenario where you had it comboed with another card, and you could make basically as many 1/1 fairies that fly as you want. But
Hmm.
then they also became +1/+1 for every other fairy. So
Hmm.
you'd have 20 of these, and they all fly, and they're all 21/21s, and it's like the other person is dead in 1 second, right? And so that won almost every time. I don't know if I've ever had as good a deck, nor did I put it through an AI engine, but you should make sure you save your decks. Maybe we can challenge them off against each other.
Well, I mean, I've got them all in paper. I don't know if I still have the digital version saved,
And
unfortunately. But
pull out your best one, I guess.
yeah.
Cool. I got to run.
Okay.
Well, good chatting as always.
Yep.
Sweet.
Adios.
Adios. Take care.